morning, everyone, and welcome to the RailFreight Webinar, Inland versus Port Terminal, Keys for Effective Rail Logistics. Welcome, dear viewers. My name is Marco Raimondi, and today I will be your host for this webinar, during which we will dive into the differences between port and inland terminals. Here in the studio with me, we have Mariona Graciopo, our colleague. And hello. And in video connection, we have our two guest speakers for this webinar. We have Martin Kubek, Director Silk Road and CIS at Metrans, and Marcin Kamola, Commercial Manager at Baltic Hub. Welcome, Martin and Marcin. How are you?
Thank you. Very well. Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for making the time. So before we properly start into the discussion, let's provide some context. We have Baltic Hub. We have a speaker from Baltic Hub, which is a very important terminal at the port of Gdańsk, one of the most important terminals in Poland. And we have a representative from Metrans who manages a number of terminals, inland terminals throughout Europe. Thus, we have the perfect panel to discuss and have a deep dive into how these terminals differently operate and what they have in common. One last remark for our viewers: if you have any question, please feel free to write it in the chat. Mariona is also here to keep an eye on it, so please feel free to ask away. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into it with the first question for our speakers. Maybe we start with Martin. What are the main operations involving freight trains in inland terminals? And then maybe Marcin can shed a bit of light on the main operation in port terminals.
What we need actually in the terminals is, of course, the shunting station. So the main part of the terminal is also the shunting station, the infrastructure before the station and also in the station. For us, it's also very important the length of the rail track inside of the terminal. So we are also trying to design the terminal, if it's possible, for the length of the whole train. The train length for Europe should be around 740 meters.
Yeah.
That's the standard the rail infrastructures should be prepared for. Not in all countries or on all infrastructures this has been reached, but it should be the future for the whole Europe. So when we are preparing the terminal, when we are designing the new terminal, we are trying to have the length of the rail track to be minimum 740 meters and to be able to run the train in the full length when that's possible. In terms of Gdańsk, if I should go to Gdańsk, we are quite happy that our trains going from Ostrava and Dąbrowa Górnicza to Gdańsk are on this length already. So the infrastructure there allows us quite long trains, and we are of course happy because it's very, very advantageous for us and for the clients. And the terminal are then managing the length of the train. Sometimes we need to cut them on the two trains when the terminal doesn't allow it, but it really depends on the final or origin terminal we are using.
Yeah. So so to sum it up, it would be efficient shunting and track length for inland terminals. And Marcin, for port terminals, are the requirements similar? Are there some difference when it comes to the type of infrastructure that's needed?
I would say that actually that port terminal is the same as the land terminal, but also just accepts vessels. Yeah. So that's the main difference, of course, when we talk about accepting railway and trains, or let's say all the intermodal services. Of course, everything is the same as in the inland terminals. Of course, the size of everything is larger because when you have a terminal handling 4 million containers a year, or with a capacity like this, like we have, and handling 60,000 containers on rail on monthly, of course, our capacity on the land side, on the rail side must be huge. So we have 7 rail tracks, 750 meter long, like Martin mentioned. So whatever we build, we must be out of any constraints for the intermodal operator or the railway operator, because it's all about efficiency. So the train should arrive, and after 3 hours, it should be ready to depart and start the run back to the inland terminal, because the faster we work on the terminal, the shorter the train is on the stations or in the port or on the station next to the inland terminal. Yeah. The more efficiently Metrans or whoever can use their equipment. And if you make 3 runs a week with the same wagon sets, or 4 times a week with the same wagon sets, of course, that's definitely affecting your cost and the offer you put on the market.
Yeah. And maybe also to remain on the 750 meter length long trucks, is it perhaps a bit harder to implement them in ports where maybe space can be more of a constraint rather than in inland terminals?
I think that it's always the same case. Of course, in the port, everyone is thinking how to use most efficiently the land for handlings. Yeah. Rail, of course, is some kind of this kind of infrastructure that is, you cannot use it for storage of containers, so you need to think how to use it the best. But of course, when we were designing the terminal and when we are thinking about development of the terminal, we always have in mind that we cannot be a bottleneck. So with the infrastructure inland is enabling 750 meter long trains. And in Poland, actually, you can run almost from the port of Gdańsk, almost to the border with Czech Republic, just 30 or 40 kilometers now to the border. But we think that it will also our both countries will close this gap also in the following years, thinking about redevelopment of the border crossings or building new railway lines. This is also planned to build a new connection between south of Poland and Ostrava, so through the whole Silesia area. So it would also enable running full-length trains. So we cannot be a bottleneck. So when we were in the beginning building the railway terminal, so of course it was shorter, 600 meters. But then when we were redesigning it for the future, we knew, okay, we have land for 750. We will use it for 750. We have land for as many tracks as possible. So we had space for 7. We cannot have any constraints on the axle load, because in the beginning it was just, as I remember, 19.5, but we also took it to 22.5. So just to know that if anyone decides to come with any type of wagon, any length of train, any type of container, we cannot be constrained. So that's our thinking, strategic thinking for the future. In the future, well, we are also thinking about other ideas maybe for the future, how to enable running electric locomotives straight onto the terminal premises. But also that's a work we need to do in combination with the port authority, because we are just one of the terminals in the port, and the port also manages part of the infrastructure in the port itself. We need to talk with PKP PLK, so the network infrastructure manager in Poland, but also, and most importantly, with companies like Metrans, who are not only intermodal operators, but also they are running trains as a railway operator. So they have this whole visibility of the process, not only whether the container is fine for transport or not, but also they know what locomotives to use best, what wagons to use best, what customers think about this or that solution. So that's why we are very, very in detailed discussions with everyone. And we are also happy that Polish market is so open that we have not 2, 3, or 4 intermodal operators, but 12 or 13, larger, smaller, and each of them is having their own ideas that we can discuss and try to accommodate for the development of the market.
Yeah, thank you very much. So we already have our first question from the chat. So
yeah, I think that would be for Marcin. They are asking, Peter is asking, how big is the rail cargo share in the port of Gdańsk? Do we have this data?
In our terminal, it's now 32%.
32.
Yeah, perfect. Then maybe moving on to the next question. Which one of the 2 types of terminal traditionally has a higher rail presence? Is there usually a a higher average in port terminals or in inland terminals, or are there different factors that play in that? Martin, maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, I can say from our point of view, of course, our terminals are designed to serve basically the trains. So we could say that for us, the rail is the main topic on the terminal. Of course, the terminal serves the client for the last mile, which means mostly trucking. So we have to reload from the rail to the truck, but we are also reloading from the trains coming from the ports. We are also reloading on the single wagons and delivering to the clients, which are able to accept the wagons in their facilities. So we are also delivering cargo by rail. But for hinterland terminal, I think the rail infrastructure, basically the rail, is crucial. So if you come and see our terminals, there is mainly railway infrastructure. Of course, we need to count with the container storage areas. We need to count in some terminals with parking of the trailers where we are doing the trailer loadings, etc., etc. So we need also the space for this, to be able to store them, to be able to park them, to be able to accept the trucks for last mile deliveries. But the main topic still is the train, because we do not speak about normally one train, but we are also, as Martin mentioned, that they have more rail tracks. We are also accepting on the bigger terminals, we are accepting more trains simultaneously. For Česká Třebová, for example, this is also what Martin mentioned, that they are thinking about accepting the trains, the electric train locomotives in the port. It's a good example that, for example, in Česká Třebová, we do have a possibility to cross the terminal with the electric loco. So there is a system how we are doing that. So the loco is going through the terminal at the end and stop at the end, and we don't need additional diesel, hybrid, whatever shunting. So it's much more efficient for us, definitely. And then we have also rail tracks next to each other, and then we can reload train to train, basically, if there is a chance. So we can also do it really simultaneously and reloading one-to-one. So this is a little bit different to the port, because from the port, the main task is, of course, to bring the containers on the rail from the vessel. At our terminals, we are loading from container train to another container train, doing the system hub and spoke. So that's the logic with on our hub terminals, and or actually deliveries by trucks.
Yeah. So from what I understood, there's also a little difference in in terms of equipment. Maybe what are 3 items that cannot be missing in a port terminal, and maybe what are 3 items that cannot be missing from an inland terminal?
In a port terminal, of course, that's the difference is that we also serve vessels. So when you look on the types of operations, we have those marine operations, and some of them are also marine transit. So from one vessel to another, in our part of Europe, it's from one big vessel to a feeder. In North Sea ports, when you have very nicely developed inland navigation, of course, also we have a lot of containers going from other vessels to the barges that then are treated by colleagues in those ports as some kind of one of the inland transport modes. Of course, it's still on the water, but let's say they call it inland. And on our side, of course, when you take the inland part, the gateway part, and we have, as I mentioned, 32% now rail. The rest is road. We have some operations that are very similar to land side operations, because we have some containers coming on trucks and then departing on rail, or vice versa. Yeah. So that also happens. Nevertheless, we think that we will be growing on rail, and that this growth is tremendous. And we will go the same path as our colleagues from Germany or from the Adriatic ports went, with 50% of rail. So that's why we are developing on rail. When you take equipment, of course, the land side, I think that's the same that we have in the terminals, cranes working on the railway part, of course, depending on the size of the inland terminal, and I will leave it to Martin because they have different types of terminals and he can elaborate. But of course, on our side, the marine part, of course, we have key cranes, the ship-to-shore cranes that are working on the vessels, but the rest is just the same because we are just handling containers, but we are located in different conditions.
Yeah. And Martin, is there anything maybe specific for inland terminals?
I would say not so much specific. If you look on the equipment, what Martin also mentioned, basically we have also cranes. We are trying to use as much as possible the cranes. So these cranes are, let's say, not the same, but similar. For the rail operation, I believe maybe they are also similar in the ports. But of course, there are a little bit difference to the vessel operations, which are much bigger. We don't need such a big cranes like if you need to serve 24,000 TEU vessel. So ours are a little bit smaller. On the other side, we do need much more. For example, the reach stackers. On some terminals, we are using mostly reach stackers. We are using them for storage of empties, for repairing the containers, for the additional service, PTI tests of the empties, etc., etc. So we need also additional equipment, mainly reach stackers for such services, which are more suitable for the hinterland terminals, because we are counting with the repairing of the containers, for example, because after unloading, when the client owner of the container determine, or we will determine for them that the container is damaged, the best is to repair it as soon as possible, not to move it somewhere. Yeah. Of course, there should be some economical point of view that some big damages they are repairing in other countries, not in Europe, but it's different discussion. So we need to be prepared for such things. We also need to be prepared for PTI tests, because much more we do have a export loading. So when the reefer container is coming, unloading, then we need to do the test of it. And for that, we need some equipment also, like, for example, the reach stackers. So this is a little bit small difference. In the port, they are doing also, I think, such things sometimes. But I would say in the hinterland terminal, it's more common than in the port.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you very much. We have another question from our lovely audience.
Yeah, we have 3 questions. So, Christoph is asking, do you use a TOS with good train and RailFreight filters in it? Or do you use an individual software setup, for example, mix of Excel, TOS, and other solutions? I understand this is for Martin.
I think it could be interesting to hear from both, if maybe the difference in how TOS are deployed in port terminals or inland terminals.
I can start from the marine part. Of course, we are using terminal operating system. Part of it is a railway part. I think that this railway world is still, or logistic world is still not fully digitalized on the land side. So of course, there is some kind of a mix of different sources or different types of information coming different sources. Sometimes we need to use Excel just for a very basic thing like checking the Excel load, because this is not also very thing that is still automated. But of course, we are developing the terminal operating system. The more we go on rail, the more we are adding additional modules. So this is we want to go to full automation of data exchange, but this is a process, and we're working on some solutions that maybe in the near future will be also rolled out more wider.
Yeah, perfect. And maybe Martin, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, we have our own system, which is quite robust and which is designed for one module of the TOS is for the terminal operations, Then we have another module for the rail freight colleagues. Then we have another module which serves mainly truck last mile and first mile deliveries. Then we have customer service portal, which is basically designed to show our clients where is the container and what's inside, etc., etc. We have to, of course, send some data to the customs office, so we need to combine all these data. So for us, because we are in a little bit unique position, like a terminal operator with 20 terminals, we are owner and carrier or rail freight carrier, and owner of the locomotives and wagons. We are also doing the first last deliveries trucking. And we are also operating in some ports like shunting to the terminals, etc. So basically, there are a lot of roles Metrans has, and of course, for this we needed to have a system. So each part of this work we are having has, let's say, own under one umbrella, but own module, which is serving this each part. But it's one big robust system. Which is sometimes good, sometimes makes us troubles, because if you need to add something and change something, it's of course much more difficult than to have it separately. But basically the system is there, and we are developing our own.
Yeah. So it's as you both said, it's still also a process, and digitalization and making data communication more efficient is it's a process that take a bit of time. Shall we see the last question from our audience?
Yeah, the audience today is very, very participative, so we have 3 more questions. Let's continue with Ignacio. He's asking, how does Baltic Hub and inland terminals plan to cooperate in customs clearance, for example, in inland customs services?
Maybe we could ask what the question was more on, because of course we are a customs bonded warehouse, so customs clearance is done on our side, and all the customs clearance is done automatically through the port community system that is run in all ports as one state Polish port community system. So this kind of activity, I mean, customs clearance is completely automated, or whenever not automated. So we try to automate, or let's say do some kind of gateways to help our customers to do it automatically. But maybe if Ignacio would like to expand a little bit more questions, or I could elaborate more.
That can also be an opportunity for a RailFreight Summit as well, but we will talk a little bit about that later.
Yes.
But since Ignacio did mention some about cooperation, maybe you can elaborate a little on how port and inland terminals cooperate more in general?
I would add this to what Marcin mentioned. Yeah. Basically, generally in the port, you have a little bit different situation than in the hinterland terminals, because of course the port serves mainly as a transit point. Not always, but let's say mainly should be the transit point for the client. So there is a little bit different expectations from the clients, from the shippers on consignees, and from the customs. Because of course, for customs is an exit point in some cases from the European Union, or entry point to the European Union. On our, let's say, hinterland terminals, we could say that in some cases it's the first customs clearance or last customs clearance point. So the approach of the customs is a little bit different. We are of course cooperating. We are sharing the data. We need to send them the data. They need to give us the data about the containers as much as possible. Of course, should be digitalized, like Martin mentioned, and we are also sending the data to the customs offices, in the hinterland. Depends on which country. If we speak about only Poland, then of course it's a little bit different than when we need to go to Czech. It's also a little bit different because it's different customs office. So it's not so simple to answer, because one point should be, let's say, the customs office in Poland, and the other should be customs office in Czech, Hungary, Austria, even Serbia. When we are going from the port to our terminal in Belgrade, then you are outside of the European Union, and it's completely different, the question about the customs. But of course, for us, I think both hinterland and port terminals, it's very important to share the data with the customs and to be really proactive in case something is going to happen. They are having the controls, etc., etc. So we are definitely in touch. We are definitely cooperating with the customs, but it's not so simple.
Yeah, especially because I imagine it can even be a matter of language depending on which country you need to do the procedure in. So there's a lot of things to be considered.
I would also add one thing, because cooperating with Metrans is also a good I would say exercise in exchanging data with regarding customs from different countries than Poland. So we are both learning how to best connect custom systems of Polish customs, Czech customs with our systems. We were also meeting together with the customs office in Poland, showing them that Czech market was, and this mainly connected to the world through ports of the North Sea or Adriatic, and Poland or Gdańsk was the last that came into this solution. And also it was a thing that Polish customs needed to change, because that's always very, very funny when we are talking that we are in one single European Union using one single customs code, but this customs code is differently used in different countries and sometimes differently used by different customs officers even. So this is a process to change and make it most feasible and easiest to digest by the final customer. So he sees that it's very smooth, because we took all the duties and responsibilities to make this process as smooth as possible.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, we're still getting questions from the audience. I would say we'll read one more for now, and then also for just as a PSA, all the other questions we will forward them to our speakers, and then we can send you the answers, or even better, we can tell you the answer at the RailFreight Summit.
Exactly. So one of the questions that we would like to close this Q&A is, do you have any communication with the infrastructure manager about long-term investments and TCR on both sides?
On our side, on the port side, of course, as I mentioned, this infrastructure is partially state, partially the port authority, but we are cooperating as strong as possible with the infrastructure manager through the Ministry of Infrastructure, or whatever, or through the port, just to show them what the port is generating and how this affects which is general infrastructure. Because road is one, rail is another, marine infrastructure is another. It is of course a cost for the state, but the amount of money that the logistics is generating to the state through taxes or through just importers using Polish or other ports wherever we are in Europe. This generates, I think, enough cash flow, I would call it, for the state to properly change or invest in the infrastructure. Of course, we are in constant contact with all the stakeholders, showing them how we think we will be growing, how this will affect, how many containers, how many trucks, how many wagons will be sent on the infrastructure, and where could be potential bottlenecks. And bottleneck is one thing, and then the second thing, how to make transport as efficient and as sustainable as possible. Because of course you can run many trains, but if you are doing this with too many wagons, actually it's not sustainable, because you are using too much resources. So sustainability is making this not to do greenwashing because we are transporting on rail, but to do it most efficiently on rail, and of course most efficiently on road wherever this is must to do it on road. So that's why we are talking with all the stakeholders to know that they know our perspective, and we are channeling as much as possible the voice of the customers, so they can think how to develop infrastructure.
Yeah, I think for us it's the same. Basically, we need to discuss with all the infrastructure managers in all the countries. So basically, we are doing that on a daily basis, and it's a daily bread for our colleagues from the rail departments to discuss some construction works, some detours if there is a need, As Marcin mentioned, also length of the trains. I can give you an example. Last year, we discussed about the train from that time it was from Malaševice to Czech, and we increased the length of the train because the infrastructure manager, after discussion with the infrastructure manager, we recognized there is an improvement on this on the border or close to the border on the Polish side, and so we add one wagon more to be more effective. So, and the same is basically for all our connections. Why we are doing the lengths, the maximum lengths to Gdańsk when there is a containers, let's say, coming to our network, going to Gdańsk, and the train is full. Then, of course, for us, it's good to use the full length of 750 meters. If not, we are able to cut it between Ostrava and Dąbrowa, which is part of the train to Gdańsk, for example. We are running a bit shorter trains because of the border crossing where it's not possible to do it, but from Dąbrowa Górnicza to Gdańsk, we are using the full length of the train. So there is always a discussion, let's say daily discussion, operational thinking, how to do it the best, how to serve it best, how to make it as much efficient as possible, and of course not to disturb the network, the infrastructure, as Marcin mentioned. So if there is a possibility to use the length of the train in the full length, then we are doing that, and we are discussing really daily.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And we have maybe one final question from the audience, since it's a very hot topic these days. So Mariona, maybe you can ask it.
Are you already thinking to have a dual use of those infrastructures for tackling also military mobility?
I think it's some kind of a must, and this is actually built that way.
Yeah. So it's already built that way from, let's say, from the beginning.
Yeah, I think there is some infrastructure which is used for the military, of course. We are not so much involved in that part, so I cannot comment so much. Yeah. But basically, of course, we see that there are some terminals, not ours, but some terminals are used for the military, especially on the eastern part of Poland. There are some. So yeah, that's part of the life which will be with us for the next years.
Yeah, exactly, or at least so it seems, since the European Union seems to be going in that direction. Okay, I think we still have some questions for the speakers, so please do stick around. But I would say first, it's a good time to introduce the second highlight of this webinar, which is the upcoming RailFreight Summit. This will be the 8th edition of the event, which will be taking place in Gdańsk, Poland, on 8th and 9th of April, with a focus on the synergies between ports and railways in Europe. Both Marcin and Martin will be participating at the event as speakers. There will be sessions with port authorities from all over Europe, terminal operators. We'll have sessions with software companies, but we will also tackle somewhat less operational issues such as staff shortages and the latest policies in the European Union aimed at boosting rail freight, as well as some technologies. However, the plenary program is not the only good part of RailFreight Summit. It will also be a great opportunity for industry players to gather, network, and make business happen. Moreover, we'll have a site visit to Baltic Hub terminals. Isn't that right, Mariona?
Yes, indeed. And now I'm going to use Marcin to ask him a few questions about the terminal. Marcin, the terminal just received more STS cranes. When they will be operative?
It's just a question of the. I just hear echo. Sorry. It's just a question of first they need to be discharged from the transportation vessel, and this will start today, as far as I remember. So they will be take 2 or 3 days to discharge them, and then it will be just a question of the technical administration, so transport technical administration in Poland to accept them for operations. But because they are coming as just ready to run, it is just a question of a few weeks. So the plan is that they will start working as soon as possible. We have already 4 of them that arrived beginning of the year, and they are ready to. They are working. So it is very very fast process. So when our guests will arrive to the terminal next month, I am not sure that the 3 latest ones will be already working, but I think our guests will see that the terminal is working on its all 3 keys. So T1, the oldest one, T2, the one that is, I would say, still the newest working, and the T3 that is completely the new one. And so this will be, I think, very, very nice to see how the port of Gdańsk and our terminal is developing and adding new capacity and new opportunities for the customers.
Yes, indeed. So I would suggest that everyone register to the site visit to not miss this STS crane, maybe operating, hopefully. And just another last question about that. How is this going to impact the rail freight in Poland, having all these cranes operating already?
This will, of course, impact the railway development, and I need to return a little bit to the former questions. So when we are now making 32% of our railway, and this is around 700,000 of fuel on the rail every year, not every year, because this will be the value that we'll reach this year. And if you go to 50%, you go up to actually about 1 million. I mean, that's 50%. This is something that's a target that we are knowing that we will sooner or later reach, just because that's how the market in Central Europe is organized. And of course, when we add T3, and we know that new services are also approaching Gdańsk, because there is a large change now in the shipping industry, we will get to new services from MSC, so to additional vessels coming to Gdańsk every week. That's just one of the examples. So of course, this will be additional containers coming on the terminal itself from the sea. Central Europe is generally a gateway area, so more import and export containers than transit containers are coming. So this will definitely go on rail, and that's also why we are thinking not only on adding capacity on the water side, but we're also planning additional railway terminal. We are in close discussions with our port, with the port of Gdańsk, on how to tackle this, because we know that this will be just more and more rail. And even now, when we do 700,000 containers on rail, 7,002. This is the 3rd or 4th largest railway terminal in Europe.
Yeah.
When you go to 1 million and go above 1 million, this will be just the single largest railway terminal in the ports of Europe. So that's something that we need to really cover with care, to prepare well, because when you are so huge, you are able to affect so many stakeholders that you must be 110% sure that you are ready to handle this. So that's that we take it really with all the responsibility we know that we have on the market and the customers and the final customers, because finally someone has imported a container full of something, could be door handles, but if those door handles are stuck in the port, you cannot sell them. So that's that's how you can affect the global logistics chain from a very large perspective to a perspective of a single importer.
Okay, so exciting future for the port of Gdańsk then. Martin, now that we also have you here and you'll be both speaking at the RailFreight Summit, what do you look forward to?
I'm looking forward normally when there is a summit organized by ProMedia for meeting the people and having a nice discussion. So that's for me the most important is this networking. Of course, it will be quite interesting to hear about the development in Poland in the rail freight since let's say last year, which I believe is quite interesting point, because Poland is developing also in the rail quite well. So this part is something I'm really looking for.
That's nice. And do you know that we have a new exciting networking opportunity? We have a fun run at 7 a.m. before the conference starts, so we expect all of you to join?
Yeah, if there is a possibility to join by Google Meet, then I'll do that. Thank you.
I will be right there with you, Martin, I think. All right, then I would say we can thank very much our speakers for their time today and for their very interesting insights. Thank you again, Marcin. Thank you again, Martin. We will see you both in Gdansk at the RailFreight Summit. Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation. All the best for all the listeners of this webinar.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you for
day.
having me, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and now that we almost reached the end of our webinar, we can maybe talk a little bit about all the networking opportunities that they will have at the RailFreight Summit, but maybe we too.
Yeah, indeed. So as I just mentioned, we will have a fun run. It's not a joke. We believe it's a great opportunity to kick off the day with great energy and to start networking with your peers before the conference starts. After and during the conference, we will have plenty of coffee breaks to network. We will also have Boom Your Network to help everyone expand their connections and maybe do some business.
Hopefully.
And this year, for the first time, we have a very exciting award. It's the RailFreight Shipper of the Year award.
Yes, indeed.
What does that mean? Well, we want to honor cargo owners that excels in using rail as the transport, as a key part of their supply chain.
Yeah.
So, if you want to help us choose which is the best shipper, please vote on railfreightsummit.com. Today is the last day. So we hope you participate and let us know which is your favorite shipper.
Yes, so please cast your vote and help us find out who's the shipper of the year, of the RailFreight Shipper of the Year this year we'll go to. That was it, and with the hope of seeing you all in Gdansk, Poland on April 8th and 9th for the 8th edition of the RailFreight Summit. I wish you a great day and a great weekend. Until next time.